Welcome back to the Book in Minutes. Today we're plunging into some really fascinating material. It unpacks something incredibly powerful, but often overlooked.
Yeah, it's about the profound impact of the small stuff, the seemingly insignificant things we do every single day.
Right. And how those tiny actions, they sort of accumulate into really remarkable results over time.
It's a deep dive into how habits actually work, and it challenges some, common ideas about how change really happens. We'll look at why focusing on tiny improvements, like 1% better, can be way more effective than just chasing big goals.
And also how our daily actions are constantly sculpting, who we actually become.
Exactly. We've pulled out some really powerful insights here. Stuff that can honestly shift how you think about progress and your own potential.
Yeah, our mission really is to distill these core ideas for you, make them accessible, and help you see how this whole framework can be applied to build, a better future self.
It makes me think of that analogy, the airplane one.
Oh, yeah, like on a long flight, say LA to New York.
Right. If the pilot adjusts the course just a few degrees, maybe 3.5 degrees, you wouldn't even notice it at the start. It seems tiny.
Negligible over the first few miles, yeah.
But stretched out over thousands of miles. That tiny adjustment lands you in a completely different city. Washington, D.C., not NYC.
And that, fundamentally, is the core idea we're exploring today, isn't it? The surprising power of these tiny changes when they compound over time.
Mm-hmm. It's like compound interest for your life, really. It can work for you or, against you if you let bad habits pile up.
Let's start right there with that compounding idea. The material makes this really compelling case that tiny improvements, repeated consistently, they don't just add up. They multiply exponentially.
It calls it the compound interest of self-improvement.
Which sounds great. And there's that striking statistic.
Oh, yeah. If you commit to getting just 1% better at something each day for a year, just 1%, by the end of the year, you wind up almost 37 times better.
37 times. From 1% a day. That's huge.
It is. But the flip side is just as stark. Getting 1% worse each day. That basically grinds you down almost to zero over a year.
Wow. Okay, so the math is clear. But why is it so hard to feel that compounding effect day to day? Why don't we notice it?
Well, because the immediate impact is practically invisible. Right, you save a little bit of money today, you're not suddenly rich tomorrow.
You go to the gym once, you don't look in the mirror and see a massive change.
Exactly. Or you practice a skill for an hour, you're still, miles away from mastering it. And that lack of instant payoff, that lack of immediate gratification.
Makes it really easy to just slide back or give up. Or worse.
Worse, it lets those small negative habits creep in totally unnoticed. One bad meal, skipping one workout, procrastinating just this once.
Doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment.
But like that tiny shift in the airplane's course, those repeated 1% errors, those little slips, they compound too. They lead to significant unwanted outcomes down the line. The real damage isn't the single mistake, it's the pattern.
So habits really are, like the material says, a double-edged sword.
Totally. Good habits, reading regularly, exercising, saving consistently, they become your allies. They build you up over the long haul.
While the bad ones, chronic stress, negative self-talk, impulsive decisions, they're like enemies slowly chipping away at you.
And the key thing is, both work through that same compounding mechanism. It works both ways.
So the results we see in our lives right now, our fitness, our finances, our knowledge, even the clutter in our house, they're actually lagging measures of our past habits.
That's a great way to put it. They're the delayed outcomes of what you've been doing repeatedly. You literally are what you repeat, but you don't always see the full cost or benefit for months, sometimes years.
Which leads right into this idea of the plateau of latent potential. That's a key concept here.
It really is. We expect progress to be linear, right? Put in effort, get an immediate proportional result. But reality, it's often messy.
Yeah, you put in the work day after day, and it feels like nothing's changing. You're just stuck on this flat plateau.
And that can be incredibly frustrating. Makes you want to quit.
Like that ice cube analogy in the material. You heat an ice cube from, say, 25 degrees to 31 degrees.
Nothing seems to happen visually.
Right. But the energy isn't wasted. It's being stored. The big change, the melting, happens all at once. Bang! At 32 degrees.
Or think about the stone cutter, hammering away at a rock maybe 100 times, no visible crack. Then, boom! The 101st hit splits it in two.
It wasn't just that last hit, was it? It was all the accumulated effort before.
Exactly. Or bamboo, It barely grows above ground for years, building this huge root system hidden away.
And then it suddenly shoots up like 90 feet in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
Insane.
So if you're putting in the work but not seeing the results you want yet, you might just be in what the material calls the valley of disappointment.
But the crucial message is, your work probably isn't wasted. You're building potential, storing energy, just like that ice cube.
Patience is absolutely key. Breakthroughs often happen only after you've put in that significant, consistent effort and crossed some invisible threshold.
Okay, so understanding compounding and delayed results is vital. But the material then pivots and kind of pushes back against something we hear all the time: setting big goals.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle. Goals aren't bad in themselves, but this suggests that over-focusing on the outcome, the goal itself, can actually get in the way of building the habits and systems you need for long-term success.
So how does it define the difference then? Goals versus systems.
Pretty simply, really. Goals are about the results you want. Win the championship, lose the weight, write the book.
The finish line.
Exactly. Systems, on the other hand, are about the processes that lead to those results. Your training routine, your writing schedule, your daily eating habits. The stuff you do.
And the core argument is, well, it's pretty blunt.
It is. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's a central theme here.
So forget the goal obsession and focus on the system.
Pretty much. Think about sports. The goal is the best score, right? But you don't win by staring at the scoreboard the whole game.
No, you focus on playing well on the process.
Right. You focus on the system, the practice, the execution. The idea is the score takes care of itself if your system is solid. So if you want better results, don't just fixate on the target, focus on improving your system.
Okay, that makes sense. But why is focusing too much on the goal itself actually a problem? The material lays out a few reasons.
Well, first off, winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Think about the Olympics. Everyone wants the gold medal.
Right, the goal isn't the differentiator.
Exactly. What sets the winners apart isn't the goal, it's their system of continuous small improvements day in, day out. The British cycling example is perfect here.
They always wanted to win the Tour de France. That was the goal for years.
Yeah, but they only actually did it after they implemented this meticulous system of tiny 1% gains in absolutely everything. Bike seats, nutrition, even pillowcases for better sleep. The system made the difference.
The goal was the destination, but the system was the engine and the map to get there. Okay, what's another problem with goal-only focus?
Achieving a goal is often just a momentary change. Like, you clean your messy room, great. Goal achieved.
Feels good for a minute.
But if you haven't changed the underlying system, the sloppy habits that made the room messy in the first place, what happens?
It just gets messy again pretty quickly.
Right. You treated the symptom, not the cause. Lasting improvement means changing the system that produces the result.
That feels like the classic yo-yo diet effect. People hit their weight goal, but then...
Exactly. The motivation was tied only to hitting that number. Once it's reached, the drive disappears, and they often slide back because the underlying eating and exercise systems weren't fundamentally changed or enjoyed for their own sake.
Which brings us to the third issue: goals restricting happiness.
Yeah, the implicit message with goals is often, I'll be happy when I achieve X. When I lose the weight, when I get the promotion.
It defers satisfaction, always puts it off into the future.
Right. But a systems-first approach lets you find satisfaction now whenever your system is running well. You can take pride in showing up and doing the work, regardless of the immediate outcome. You learn to love the process itself.
That sounds much more sustainable.
Yeah.
And the fourth problem connects back to that yo-yo thing.
Goals can be at odds with long-term, continuous progress. The purpose of setting a goal is often to win the game, to reach a specific endpoint.
Finish line.
Yeah, but the purpose of building a system is to keep playing the game, to keep improving indefinitely. So the material suggests that true long-term thinking is actually kind of goalless thinking.
Focusing on continuous refinement of your systems rather than just jumping from one goalpost to the next.
Exactly. It's a shift from focusing on a single destination to embracing the ongoing journey.
Okay, so if we're shifting from just outcomes and goals to the systems producing them, the material talks about 3 layers of change: outcome, process, and the deepest one.
Identity. That's the core. Think of it like an onion. Outcome is the surface layer, what you get. Process is the next layer, what you do, your system. But identity is the center, what you believe about yourself.
And the big insight is that real lasting change is super hard if you don't address that identity layer.
Precisely. Trying to change habits without changing the underlying identity that drives them is like swimming upstream. It takes constant effort and willpower because you're fighting who you believe you are.
This is where that distinction between outcome-based and identity-based habits comes in. That feels really important.
It's crucial. Outcome-based is focusing on what you want. Like, I want to quit smoking.
Okay, that's the goal.
Right. But you still might see yourself as a smoker who is trying to quit. The identity hasn't shifted.
Whereas identity-based focuses on who you want to become.
Exactly. Saying, I am not a smoker. That signals a shift in belief. Smoking is no longer congruent with your identity. It feels wrong.
So it's not just changing the action, it's changing the belief about yourself that leads to the action.
That's the heart of it. Behavior that clashes with your self-image is incredibly difficult to maintain long-term. You might try to stick to a budget, but if deep down you believe I'm just bad with money, that identity will likely find ways to sabotage your efforts.
The example used about Brian Clark and nail biting really drives this home.
Yeah, he stopped the behavior through willpower before, right? The outcome changed temporarily.
But the lasting change only happened after he got a manicure, felt proud of his nails,
Yeah.
and that shifted his identity.
Suddenly, he saw himself as someone who takes care of their nails. Biting them became inconsistent with that new identity. The pride in the identity fueled the habit effortlessly.
So, true behavior change is identity change. Motivation gets you started, maybe, but identity makes it stick.
The goal isn't just to do something like run a marathon. It's to become someone to become a runner. It's about the being, not just the doing or the getting.
Which makes that vote analogy so powerful. Our daily actions aren't just random things we do.
They're votes. Every time you choose the salad over the fries, you cast a vote for being a healthy person. Every time you write for 10 minutes, you cast a vote for being a writer.
Every time you make your bed, a vote for being organized.
Right. And these small habits, these daily votes, they build up evidence. They prove to yourself bit by bit that you are that type of person. They reinforce the identity.
Which, of course, highlights the flip side, too. Those negative labels we stick on ourselves.
Oh, yeah. I'm terrible with names. I'm not a morning person. I always procrastinate.
Those become ingrained identities, too. And we feel this internal pressure to act consistently with them, even when it hurts us.
Absolutely. That identity conflict, wanting to change but feeling bound by who you think you are, is a massive barrier.
So progress really requires being willing to, edit your own story, to update your identity.
You have to be willing to let go of the old identity to make space for the new one. You can't cling to being bad at math if you want to become someone who understands it.
Okay, so if identity is built this way, through our habits, how do we consciously shape it? It's not like flicking a switch.
No, definitely not. The material makes it clear. Your identity isn't fixed. It emerges from what you do repeatedly. It's learned. It's conditioned.
So our habits literally embody our identity.
Yes. Daily writing is embodying being a writer. Daily training is embodying being athletic. The habits make the identity real and tangible.
And as you said, the more you repeat the action, the more evidence you gather, the stronger that identity becomes.
The path to changing your identity is the path of changing your habits. The source boils it down to a simple two-step process.
Okay, what are the steps?
1, decide the type of person you want to be. Get really clear on that. Who do you want to stand for? What are your core values?
So define the target identity first.
Right. And 2, prove it to yourself with small wins. Take tiny, consistent actions that align with that identity you just defined. Cast those votes.
And if you're stuck on step 1, who do I want to be?
You can work backward from the results you want. Ask yourself, who is the type of person who could naturally achieve the outcome I want?
Okay, so if I want to write a book, who writes books? Someone who is maybe consistent, reliable, shows up daily.
Exactly. So then your focus becomes, how can I act like a consistent, reliable person today? How can I show up? You focus on embodying those qualities.
Like that friend in the source material who lost a lot of weight. She didn't just focus on the number on the scale.
No, she asked herself constantly, what would a healthy person do right now? Would they take the stairs, order the salad, go for a walk?
And using that question as a guide for small daily decisions.
Eventually led her to becoming that healthy person. The identity followed the actions.
It creates this feedback loop, doesn't it? Habits shape identity, and identity reinforces habits.
It's a continuous cycle, and the key is making sure your values and your desired identity are driving that loop, not just chasing external result. It's about becoming, not just getting.
Okay, so that covers the why and the what of identity and systems. But underpinning all of this is the basic science of how habits actually form and operate.
Right, the nuts and bolts. The material introduces the four-step model, often called the habit loop. This applies to all habits, good or bad, outcome-focused or identity-focused.
And this isn't just theory, it goes back to foundational psychology, right? Like Thorndike's cats figuring out how to escape puzzle boxes.
Exactly. Trial and error leads to a successful action, the brain notes what preceded it, an association is learned, and eventually the solution becomes automatic. Habits are the brain's way of automating solutions to recurring problems.
Why does the brain do that? Why automate?
To save mental energy. Conscious thought is a bottleneck. Your brain wants to free up your attention for new challenges, novel situations, so it outsources routine tasks to the non-conscious parts of the brain.
Which actually counters that idea that habits restrict freedom.
Totally. By automating the fundamentals, brushing your teeth, driving a familiar route, maybe even your morning writing routine, you free up mental bandwidth for creativity, problem solving, deeper thinking. Habits create freedom.
Okay, so what are the 4 steps of this loop?
Always in this order. Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Step 1, cue.
The trigger.
Yeah, the trigger. It's a bit of information that predicts a reward. Could be your phone buzzing, walking into the kitchen, feeling stressed a certain time of day. Anything your brain has associated with a potential payoff.
And then comes the craving. Step 2.
This is the motivational engine. Crucially, you don't crave the habit itself. You don't crave scrolling Instagram. You crave the change in state it provides.
Like relief from boredom or a feeling of connection.
Exactly. Or relief from stress, or the feeling of a clean mouth after brushing. The craving is the desire linked to the cue.
Step 3 is the response. That's the actual habit or action you perform. Checking the phone, eating the cookie, going for the run. Whether you do it depends on how motivated you are, how easy or difficult the action is, friction matters, and if you're capable of doing it.
And finally, step 4, the reward.
The reward does 2 things. 1, it satisfies the craving, delivers that change in state you wanted. 2, it teaches your brain, hey, this loop worked, remember this for next time. It closes the loop and reinforces the habit.
So the cue and craving are like the problem phase, noticing an opportunity or need.
And the response and reward are the solution phase, taking action and getting the payoff. Every habit is trying to solve some kind of problem or fulfill a desire.
And this whole cycle is just running constantly, mostly unconsciously, driving so much of our behavior.
All the time. And if any one of those 4 steps is weak or broken, if the cue isn't obvious, the craving isn't there, the response is too hard, or the reward isn't satisfying, the habit won't form or it'll fall apart.
Understanding that loop, cue, craving, response, reward. Feels like getting the user manual for ourselves, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a fundamental blueprint. If you want to build a good habit, you make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. If you want to break a bad habit, you do the inverse.
Wow. Okay, we have definitely covered a lot in this deep dive. It started with that really powerful idea of compounding, how those tiny 1% changes add up massively over time.
Yeah, even though progress often feels stalled because of that plateau of latent potential, patience is key.
Then shifting focus from just chasing goals to building effective systems, the processes that actually deliver results consistently, falling to the level of your systems, not rising to your goals.
And then the deepest layer, realizing that lasting change comes from shifting your identity, who you believe you are, focusing on becoming the type of person who achieves those results naturally.
Using our daily habits as votes, casting evidence for that desired identity.
Exactly. And we saw how it all operates mechanically through that 4-step habit loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. That's the engine driving it all.
You know, the real takeaway here feels bigger than just hitting targets. It's about recognizing the incredible power you have right now through your small, consistent daily actions.
To literally sculpt who you are becoming, to build the identity you truly want.
You really do have the power through those tiny choices to cast votes for that future self. Day by day, building proof for who you are.
It's quite empowering when you think about it that way.
So, as we wrap up, here's something to maybe chew on. Think less about the specific goals you're setting and more about the person you are becoming through your daily actions. Are your habits consistently casting votes for the future self you genuinely aspire to be?
And maybe ask yourself, what's just one tiny action, one small vote you can take today that aligns with that person?
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
We really hope these insights are valuable as you think about building your own systems and becoming the person you wish to be.